The Lucid Air is the most efficient passenger vehicle currently for sale. On a single charge, it can travel 420 miles, attaining 5 miles per kilowatt hour of energy. If we consider the amount of energy stored in gasoline, then the Lucid Air can travel that 420 miles on the equivalency of just 2.5 gallons of gas. Lucid took a path of efficiency that few other automakers would take, and it resulted in an incredible product. So how can a startup in California go about this process? Well, they had the system of the electric car, and they broke it down into various subsystems, and then they made each as good or efficient as possible. For instance, Lucid uses an incredibly high-voltage battery architecture to cut down on resistance losses, ultra-efficient inverters to minimize heat generation, and most importantly, a slippery design to reduce aerodynamic drag. But this divide-and-conquer method doesn't only work in engineering applications. A year and a half ago, I had to view my own life through a similar lens. Truth be told, I didn't really enjoy my first 3 semesters at college. I was overwhelmed with my engineering course load, I was constantly distracted, and my grades were far from good. The culmination of this was in the end of my fall 2022 semester, when I pulled an all-nighter at the library to finish my work. I ended up not finishing anything, feeling trapped in a vicious cycle of procrastination. I would work for a few minutes, then get caught up scrolling on Instagram or going down to the vending machine to eat snacks. The next week was disastrous. I failed my Calc 3 final exam, and I only got 8 credit hours that semester. At that point, I was considering just leaving Clemson for a semester and going to community college to buy some time. In the end, I didn't, but I had to come to the realization that radical change was not just needed to get through college, but imperative for life beyond. The next year, I made up lost ground. I secured 45 credit hours, and I took on far more tasks. Even during the school year, I was at times publishing up to 3 articles a week, doing remote data analytics work for a startup in San Francisco, and getting much better grades, and doing better in calculus. My life was hectic but fulfilling, and I felt as if I was nearing the peak of what I could commit to. But to accomplish this, I had to view myself as Lucid sees its electric cars. I had to approach my life from a different angle. I had to realize that my time and energy were limited resources that needed to be maximized to the fullest extent. And as we progress into the future, there are 2 main things happening. First, the need for productivity is higher than ever thanks to the internet, but distractions are also everywhere. For my first point, I work as a freelance writer and data analyst. When I do this freelance work, I'm not paid as a full-time engineer or staff writer. Rather, I'm a freelancer who works from wherever. Thanks to the internet, I can do a specific task for a company without the long-term commitment. While I think it's a win-win, it's incredibly high pressure. If I slack off, they can have someone easily come in and just take the role that I want to do. In other words, productivity is a tenet of the freelance world, and the freelance world is becoming a primary way of working for many Americans. The other side of the sword is distractions. We are inundated by a constant stream of things and information. Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter are all vying for your attention through push notifications and short-form video content. Perhaps it's Instagram Reel that your friend sent. Simply clicking on it could lead you down a 30-minute doom scrolling session. In my first 3 semesters, I was unable to resist these distractions. As I went to bed, I would be on my phone, and as soon as I woke up, the first thing I would do would be go back on my phone. But this issue isn't even somewhat exclusive to me. All my friends face this exact same issue. Our screen times are very high. So this begs a question. What if this time spent on our phones was doing something more productive? What if even half this daily time was spent reading, writing, or learning a new language? In the case of the Lucid Air, imagine you just built the car, but instead of using a lithium-ion battery, you chose to use an old-fashioned lead-acid one instead. This lousy battery will make the car heavier, slower, and massively cut down on its range. It would be self-sabotage. It would be ridiculous to think about, yet we do it to ourselves every day. So, can we navigate these roadblocks? The answer is yes, and it lies within our neurological circuitry. There are several regions in our brains that house dopaminergic neurons. These are neurons that create dopamine, a chemical messenger that travels to the reward pathway sections of our brains. Dopamine is related to everything from memory, motivation, movement, attention, and more. In the evolutionary sense, dopamine was key to survival. It led us towards food, reproduction, and the desire for better things. In experiments with dopamine-deficient mice, these little creatures won't have any motivation to eat food, even if it's sitting right in front of them. Shows just how important motivation and dopamine are. Dopamine also constantly fires at a tonic level, creating a baseline. Whenever reinforcing or novel stimuli are introduced, dopamine will probably go above baseline. Elevated levels of dopamine are related to feelings of pleasure or euphoria. And then whenever we anticipate a reward, dopamine levels will also go up. For instance, if you walk into a kitchen and you smell cookies baking in the oven, your dopamine will go above baseline. You'll be more alert and you'll be ready. And then once you finally sink your teeth in that delicious cookie, your dopamine levels will go way higher. And before you know it, that whole plate of cookies will be gone. On the contrary, if the cookies actually turn out not to be good, your dopamine levels might go below baseline, and then you will have experienced a reward prediction error. You can say our dopaminergic system is always on the lookout for something new, interesting, or exciting. And today, there's always something new, interesting, or exciting at hand. But before we translate to social media, I want to be clear. Dopamine isn't everything when it comes to maladaptive behaviors. There's over 60 known neurotransmitters in our brain, so we cannot understate its complexity. Nevertheless, it's still important to know how we interact with stimuli like social media. And today, a lot of social media companies have user interfaces that rely heavily on novelty, randomness, and rewards. TikTok and Instagram Reels take center stage. You'll scroll through a bunch of videos, mix of stimulating and non-stimulating ones, and then once you find an exciting one, your dopamine levels might increase. But like anything that goes up, it will eventually have to go down. And after it subsides, you might be motivated to keep scrolling to find another exciting one. For social media companies, these three things can keep users hooked. And worse yet, when you have a difficult school or work assignment in the way, scrolling through TikTok is a perfect scapegoat. And with this endless buffet of distractions getting in the way of your work, we have to ask ourselves a question. How do we get out of this loop? To become the person I wanted to be, I decided that it was time to drop all my distractions and redirect my focus to my schoolwork and writing. So I deleted all social media off my phone and computer, and I also created barriers. No snacks after 10 o'clock, and no screen time after 10:30. I spoke with Stanford professor Dr. Anna Lembke, who recommended that a month would be enough time to become accustomed to the non-stimulated lifestyle. From the spring break to the end of the semester, I adhered to a strict routine. I paid keen attention to the screen time on my phones, and I tracked it religiously. I noted my grades, the amount of money I made for my freelance work, and I created a pact with myself to make every new week more efficient and productive than the last. Like the Lucid Air's super efficient powertrain, tracking certain components of my own efficiency gave me a better idea of where I stood in the whole. A few weeks in, my screen time plummeted to less than an hour a day, and at times I was making over $1,000 a week on my freelance ventures, even during the school year. I could stay better focused, my grades improved, and I actually began to enjoy my time at college. Being disconnected from the world also improved the creativity in my writing, and it allowed me to think more. My thoughts and ideas were no longer masked by the veil of distractions like social media. Since there's so many things I want to do, the best time to get into this mindset is right here and right now. If I tell myself that now is not the right time to become a better worker, when will that time ever come? If I push it off to next week, would I actually follow through then? In today's world, is it harmful to view ourselves as equations desperately needing balance? Are we sacrificing our humanity by quantifying our goals, objectives, and progress? I don't believe so. Try asking yourself this. Does endless scrolling through short-form video content equate to autonomy? Does wasting hours away consuming content instead of creating reflect true independence? Is there any freedom in being a marionette pulled by the strings of a corporation's algorithm? While seemingly calming in the moment, escaping the real world is just going to make matters worse. Scrolling through TikTok to avoid getting that project done won't only detract from your valuable focus, but it will just increase the friction to actually getting that done in the future. But to get to a point of balance, we need to view ourselves in a different lens. We must come to the realization that many of our compulsive behaviors are merely the products of our neurological wiring and our environment. Now this begs a question, should you still use social media? Well, yes, I still use social media, though in a much lessened capacity. I try to take a mindful approach. I only use it when I want to post or message a friend, and then I delete it shortly after. In other words, when I encounter something I can get distracted with, I make sure to turn the autopilot in my brain completely off. As technology rapidly advances, it's crucial that we adapt to it faster than it can learn and exploit our behaviors. And as we enter this brave new world, we must be mindful of our interactions and intentions with technology. And then, Once we've taken a step back to adjust the aperture of our own outlook, then we can analyze our lives with fresh eyes. We can view our activities not as events in our calendar, but as boats cast towards the future we intend to facilitate. With this deeper understanding of our own lives, only then do we possess the blueprint necessary to take a step forward into a vivid world of potential, unbounded by arbitrary constraints. Thank you.